Let's do it.
Welcome back to another week of the Husker updates on the Big Red with B. Schneid Show. We got EJ joining us again this week to talk some Nebraska athletics. How are you doing, EJ?
Good, Bob. Thanks for having me on once again. Appreciate it.
I just got done fishing at Jim's pond actually a little bit ago. How are you doing, Jim? Are you ready to get back to the good life, as they say?
It, I'm kind of getting tired of golfing and playing cribbage and the sunshine. My tan's pretty good. So, yes, I'm ready to come back.
Funny joke on Jim is he's going to be probably golfing just as much here in Nebraska.
Huh.
Anyway, so we got some Husker athletics updates to go over today. We got football, we got men's basketball, women's basketball. I know they lost in the Big Ten tournament, but they won enough games to get to the women's tournament. So wish them luck. Looking around about a 10 seed in the tournament. And then, of course, the men's team laid quite the egg again and are no longer going to be in the NCAA tournament. Uh, you guys want to comment on that, feel free. If not, I completely understand. They fully sold.
Yeah, that's one way to put it. That was just what an embarrassing stretch of basketball for the final 3 weeks. And, our last one was against Northwestern, uh, at Northwestern. And I know we ended up winning that game, but we got down 20 really early in that game. And it feels like since that moment, we never really found that winning mentality that we had kind of in the middle, where we won some pretty big games against Illinois and Oregon. Offense wasn't clicking. It was, yeah, just very disappointing. You don't really want to see your season end on a 5 game losing streak and then miss the Big Ten tournament, and you're going to miss the NCAA tournament, which you had high chances of making. So,
Seems to me, um, Nebraska was not prepared for a lot of games this year, is my assessment for what that's worth.
Now, does that come down to coaching? Because
And
Hoiberg
really comes down to that.
I agree.
and I I've talked off the air with multiple people, including you two. I think that Hoiberg's biggest problem, now whether you want to say NIL or not, is that he ain't getting high school recruits. And I call total bullshit on some of it when I say, does Nebraska basketball really have that bad of an NIL when they're getting beat by Minnesota and Iowa? I think that Nebraska is just as fit for their NIL funds as Minnesota and Iowa is. So that's my perspective. Now, do I think Hoiberg should stay another year? Yes, I do think he should. But they're not getting the results on the court when it counts. There's too inconsistent year in, year out. I mean, Tim Miles has a better record than Hoiberg through 200 games. Tim Miles, I believe, was 100. He was 2 games above 500 through 200 games. Hoiberg's, I think, under, I can't even remember, about 30 or so games. Now, the past couple of years, yes, Nebraska basketball has been playing a lot better, but questions do need to be answered. Now, Nebraska's not a power basketball school. That's just the truth. But
And apparently never will be. The highest I've ever seen Nebraska basketball ranked, I believe, at the end of the season was 13.
and when
So
was
that
that?
was
The
back.
Stone Ages?
Yeah, that's they were still throwing. Yeah, it was stone basketballs actually. Um, but no, I think it was Danny Nee.
Hmm. Yeah, they had a good bunch back in the late
Well, there
90s.
sounds like the Crown tournament, I guess they have in Vegas now. I haven't even didn't even know that was a thing until they were talking about it for Nebraska basketball. But I mean, you replace your whole roster. I do want to point out the guest we had last week, which we interviewed, Jim and I did, Brennan Rigsby, his head coach just got fired, so Brennan's future is up in the air. Maybe, wait, I mean, a lot can happen and everything, but you never know. Maybe Hoiberg gives Brennan a call because he's going to have to reload his entire roster. You think about Andrew Morgan, Jawan Gary, Bryce Williams, of course, and then you have some other rotating guys. Of course, that nobody can forget Braxton Mia, the all-conference player they had in the post. who couldn't jump about 6 feet off the ground, or 6 inches, I'm sorry. I should rephrase that. But anyway, before we get into our next topic, do shoot us a comment and share what you want from our end. What do you guys enjoy us covering the most? Especially with my writing articles for character, I've been doing a lot of dives on kind of my perspective, more column like stuff. Do you guys prefer that or not? But I know last week we got, I think 4 or 5 new subscribers. So let's shoot a goal by the end of June to get to 100. I know we're at, I believe, a whopping 42 or something, but shoot a like for the show and subscribe if you are watching. I think we got around 200 or so views this past week. So if we could get even 50% of the viewership to subscribe, that'd really grow the channel. And we appreciate it. So anyway, that's Nebraska basketball. We'll see how their season ends up. Obviously, extremely disappointed. In January, they were looking like they were going to be a lock and everything, blah, blah, blah. I don't think really many people want to talk about it anymore. So let's move on to Nebraska baseball really quick before we dive into the football press conference this week. Nebraska baseball lost four straight. I believe they were at, was it 4-8? Now they've won three straight. They're 7-8. Now they're heading out to California. It's been interesting to say the least from Nebraska baseball. They lose Mason McConaughey, their starting pitcher, their ace for the whole season, but then they lose two to Washington in the doubleheader last Saturday, and then Drew Christo comes in and delivers in Jackson Brockett in his starting performance last Sunday against Washington, and then they beat Wichita State. Now, Wichita State isn't no powerhouse of a baseball program, but you saw some upside. Jasa on Tuesday just fully delivered. Bats were hitting. But then last night, I was at the game covering it, talked to Bolt post game, and they had 5 hits, and Wichita State had 9, but they still won. They took what I was really impressed about that baseball team is they're finding a way when I'm following the baseball team is they're finding a way to get when they have a runner on and they have the momentum with the leadoff hit or something, they're finding a way to get them home. I mean, I believe what was it? Anyway, they scored 4 of their first 5 runs in the first inning.
Wichita State is they're a respectable program year in and year out.
Absolutely. But what was impressive, they got guys such as Caden Brumbaugh. The guy in the first inning dives and makes a catch. TJ Coates struggles in his outing. He only gets 2 innings in his first career start as a Husker, but he dives, makes the catch. Then the Huskers, Sanderson and Jeske both get leadoff walks to start the first or bottom of the first inning, and then Brumbaugh bats him in. I am Caden Brumbaugh and Devin Nunez are clearly the top guys on the baseball team. I mean, they're the only guys in the regular rotation that are batting above 300. Nunez is in the 400 right now. And then of course Brumbaugh, but they're getting clutch hits, and even Swanson, he has 14 or he might even have 15 RBIs now after last night. But when Swanson's up, he's batting in the 180s right now. But when he gets his hits, it's when runners are on. So it'll be intriguing to see Nebraska goes out to the West Coast for 10 days over the University of Nebraska spring break. They're going to play a 3-game series at UCLA. Then they're going to play Pepperdine for 2 games, Tuesday and Wednesday. And then they will go back to LA to play USC. What Nebraska team are we going to see is the question.
Would think that if they can split, that would be a success.
I would agree.
I The biggest question though is so last night was what was really impressive was the bullpen performance as a whole. I mean, when you only have your starting pitcher pitch 2 innings and then you have to pull them out, the fact that they got I was it 2.1 innings out of the kid from Elkhorn, Colin Nowalczyk, and then Gavin Blockowitz came in and he delivered another 2 innings. Then you bring in Jalen Worthy, get another two, or no, he only pitched I believe, an inning and a third or whatever. And then you close it off with Broderick. Or no, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, guys. They bring in Drew Christo to there was traffic on, and then Drew Christo clears it out after Worthy left him the traffic. And then Blockowitz, or not Blockowitz, Broderick closes it out for a team that's really struggled when their starting pitching does gives them 4 innings or 5 innings, and then the bullpen comes and blows it up. I was impressed last night, whether Wichita State's a powerhouse or not. The bullpen's stepping up a little bit.
The way Bolt's comment was, there were way too many balls hit the backstop.
But that was with Coates, and I asked him that
Oh, yeah,
question.
like you called him a wild thing. Yeah, that brings back memories of a movie.
Yeah, yeah, Major League. Well, and that's why
Yeah.
I asked him. I was curious what his perspective was on TJ Coates' performance because the dude is a JUCO transfer. This is his first year as a Husker. He's appeared in 2 games. He came in with a 7.7 ERA, and then first inning he gets out of it, pumped up. But then he had 3 wild pitches in 2 innings pitched, and I believe he walked 3 batters as well. He threw 44 pitches, 22 strikes, 22 balls. I mean, you can't have that ratio to be successful. Now, we'll see with him, but you see these freshmen such as Blockowitz and gosh, I can't pronounce his name. I feel terrible being a media member. Nowacek, but they can't. Those two guys are proven that they can pitch on the mound, and then you got Price Bender out of the bullpen too. All are freshmen. I wouldn't be surprised here in the near future if one of those three gets a shot to throw the ball on the mound. But
TJ, your thoughts?
Uh, no thoughts here. I didn't
Yeah.
watch. Yeah. I didn't
EJ
watch
doesn't
the
keep
past
up
couple of
much
games.
with the baseball team. But hey, do comment. Do you guys like the baseball coverage, the Olympic sport coverage? We really enjoy doing the volleyball coverage. Although Nebraska volleyball is very popular here in the state, not many outlets cover those sports. So be sure to shoot us a comment if you want us to keep doing that. But let's get into football. That's the most popular sport,
Hold
clearly.
on, hold on, hold on. Hold on, we've got a couple things to cover. And that is Nebraska is playing volleyball, going to be playing in Nashville in a kind of a little tournament going on there. And that's kind of a big deal. And they got a block party going on there too.
I believe that starts on they play their game on Sunday that weekend, right? Against is it it's not Kentucky,
Yeah, I think it is.
it is Kentucky. They don't play till Sunday because Jim was kind of panicking because he got himself a ticket to go to Arrowhead and was wondering what he was going to do, but it sounds like Jim's just going to have quite the weekend for himself.
Well, I ain't going to be able to do all
Well, anyway, yeah, the volleyball team that
that. And they've also got a tournament in Lincoln too with, ooh, so I've seen the tickets for that go on sale. Florida, I think Louisville.
now share with us as a season ticket holder at Deveni, Jim, do you get to go or do you get special tickets for the games at Pinnacle Bank Arena?
I get opportunity to buy.
What's that you cut out?
I got opportunity to buy tickets to the whatever tournament it is there in Pinnacle um, for the volleyball, and also got opportunity to buy first for the tournament they're going to in Nashville.
Now that's intriguing because, a lot of people will be watching it. I was curious what the athletic department was doing for the fan base of buying that type of stuff. Anyways, let's transition to football. This week we had press conference from Matt Rule, 40 minutes. I was there for everything. Matt Rule talked for 40 minutes, and then there was 3 press conferences separate for each transfer. We had Rocco Spindler speaking, Dane Key, and then Desam McCullough. My biggest takeaway from each of those press conferences, the transfers, they are here because of Dylan Raiola. Both offensive guys said to go play with a great quarterback like Dylan Raiola. That's one of the reasons I came here, the main reason. What are your guys' thoughts on that? Because it was pretty blatantly obvious that was one of the reasons I came there. But to go up in front of the media where everybody's writing stories and everything, that was intriguing.
If you can get guys like Rocco Spindler and Dane Key, and they're kind of hinting at the fact that they're here because of a young quarterback, that's pretty big news for Nebraska. And obviously, as Nebraska fans, we lead the charge in offseason hype, but uh, it's pretty significant that you see a quarterback like Dylan Raiola lead the Husker squad. I mean, it's been a while since we've had a pretty good Nebraska quarterback at the reins. You hope to see Raiola make that jump, and when you have an expansive thing like the portal, you're going to see a lot of guys coming and going. So any sort of advantage you can give yourself, that's pretty significant. And hopefully, Raiola takes that step next year, kind of gets these guys involved, and you see them develop.
Lesson learned here. A good recruit is your best recruit for other players too. So that's kind of where I think you're at with Dylan. So that was a major victory a couple of years ago was to get him into town.
Now, building on that, Matt Rule said the quote that really kind of stood out in the middle of it. When we can expand on, EJ was touched on some stuff I really want to expand on as well. But he said, we Dylan's not going to be a great quarterback at 240 pounds. He's working on losing some weight.
Really,
Now,
that one.
He did look big,
everybody,
and
you looked at Dylan last year, and I mean, he had a little bit of chub on him. That's now them Samoans all do, with all due respect to their heritage, but they do. They're a bigger body type of guy. They're thick. They're musky. They have a lot of muscle on them, but they're a thicker group. But how much does he want to cut? What was he playing at last year? I mean, the roster has him was about 230. Is he wanting to get down to 220? I mean, we've talked about it on this show before. In order for Dylan to be great, he needs to kind of improvise with his legs a little bit. You saw it at Ohio State last year, but then you go to Iowa and guys standing in the pocket for 10 seconds and getting railed from behind. Nailed. Should clarify. Oh well, it's a podcast. It's all good.
I honestly I don't know if I could give you a weight. I'm no strength and conditioning coach or anything of that nature. But I think you have to make Bry look comfortable in a way of where he's got to move in the pocket. Obviously, a lot of new linemen. We have some linemen injured. I think Gunner and Henry were on the list. So you're going to see a lot of moving pieces, I think, in spring ball and whatnot. I think Dylan's going to have to be able to move. It's the Big Ten. You're playing nine Big Ten football teams. Dylan has to be able to move. I'm not saying he needs to scramble every time uh, when he has to throw the ball, but uh, making the right reads, and I think being a little bit faster. I mean, Dylan's not one of those guys who is gonna beat you to the spot, and uh, he's not a Josh Allen. He's not gonna run over you. But kind of, we hear the comparison all the time. Mahomes. Mahomes is so smart and uh, kind of the way he reads the field. He's able to uh, play his adversaries and kind of pick up what needs to be done on the offensive end. Just those little trick little plays and the visibility and eye motions that you see Mahomes do.
EJ, I got a thought. How many times do you think Dylan was sacked last year? 30, 40
I
at least.
can't give you a number.
I believe it
But I got to
was
say,
I did a story on that. I believe it was it 29 or 39? Let me fact check
probably
myself.
39. It's got to be 39 because 10 games get sacked 4 times a game.
I'm gonna
So,
fact check. Keep talking.
okay. So what would you say of those sacks? How many of those could Dylan have avoided if he
27. He was sacked 27.
27 times? So how many of those, a third, 10%, whatever, half?
Let's let's
If
say
he,
50% because there's some where he was trying to get out of the pocket a little too early, or he was just trying to
I'll
make a play.
defend Dylan a little bit. I know that some things the offensive line were better, some people say, but I'd say at least 65%.
unload the ball a little earlier, go to the outside, throw it to the sideline, this and that. Yeah.
Well, that's just quarterbacks in general nowadays. The era of the Tom Brady type of quarterback is dead. You don't have that anymore. I mean, you look at the two quarterbacks in the Super Bowl. There's okay, yeah, Mahomes ain't a scrambling quarterback, but Jalen Hurts sure as hell is, and Mahomes moves out of the pocket. Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, you look at all these professional quarterbacks. Now, who was it? People, when they talk about Dylan, there is no doubt. You see that guy throw a football. Yeah, there is extreme pro potential there. But is he going to be an improvement in year two, or is he going to have an Adrian Martinez type of sophomore season? We don't know.
Ooh.
Because Adrian Martinez was a complete badass for Nebraska his freshman year. People were thinking going into his sophomore year, this is a Heisman Trophy candidate. Then it was his worst year of his career as a sophomore. Now, yeah, he got hurt, but that isn't a logical excuse for his lack of production at the quarterback position. So, what Dylan Raiola will we see? He's the leader of the team, but Nebraska's had that thing where they have a sophomore as the leader of the team. You've had Taylor Martinez, you've had Adrian Martinez. So, what are you going to get?
I'm going to say it now. I say he takes a leap. I'm not going to say huge or outrageous, not Heisman watch type stuff, but you got to look at the coaching staff. Martinez, he had Frost, and I'm not going to say it's all Frost's fault, but
I will.
I don't think Jim will.
Jim,
Development was
Jim
not there
definitely will.
whatsoever. Development
Jim,
was not there. Uh, I don't think you saw linemen improve very much. Obviously, I think Martinez is an incredible athlete. Uh, I would love to say a winner at Nebraska, but it didn't happen. I believe in the staff, and I know Rule, he likes to talk, he can communicate, but you saw it this offseason, he had to bring in new guys. Obviously, there is some pressure on this Nebraska team to make big strides this year, especially in the Big Ten. I think Rilo has to take that jump, has to, or you're going to see another 6-6, 7-5 season again. Which do we want to see that? Up to the fans, I guess. I want to see wins. I want to see a lot of winning.
I gotta watch what I say, being kind of part of the media. I mean, I still have the Nebraska flag yet. I still pour for the Huskers, but you know, pretty subjective when I comment on this stuff. But I will say, I do want to talk about what Deshaun McCullough said really quick before I transition to the big thing on what Matt Rule said. Deshaun McCullough talking about people, everything in the locker room, what he's seeing in mat drills. And what stood out was so McCullough is going to be an edge guy, the jack position. They pointed that out. He ain't going to be playing the rover from what he said at the media availability on Tuesday. But he pointed out a guy that stood out was Williams Nwaneri, who just came in from Missouri. He said, I could see that guy being a future first round pick. He said he's 270 pounds and as quick as hell. Now I'm paraphrasing a lot of that, but still, you got that guy there. I think Williams Nwaneri is going to be Nebraska's biggest transfer on both sides of the ball because of his force on the defensive line. And I fully expect you to see a lot more four down fronts because even Rule said we can tell these guys to try to be as good as Ty. That's shooting for a lot. But he flat out said, I don't think people are going to realize how good Ty is. And the fan base, the media is already talking about how big of a loss Ty and Nash would be. But your head coach going up to the media and reaffirming that speaks wonders. Because normally a head coach would come up and say, well, we got a lot of guys on this roster on the defensive line that really can play football. And he did give credit to Riley Van Poppel, Cam Lenhart. He said he thought they were ready, but four down D linemen.
We all saw that on the field. We all saw that on the field. When you pulled Ty and Nash out, um, things really went. There was a level drop that was pretty significant.
Yeah, there's a couple games we don't win last year without both those guys, in my opinion.
Okay, while we're on this topic, we're going to cover this before the NFL draft, but right now I think Ty Robinson's a second round pick.
His NFL Combine stats pretty great. I
And
mean,
I'm sorry to interrupt, DJ, but let's point out something. Thomas Fidone put up good numbers at the NFL Combine. Thomas Fidone runs a 4.7 going to play professional football. Um, Now I'm not Thomas Fidone Science. I ran a 4.6 when I was timed. Ty Robinson ran a 4.83 at three. He dropped weight to 285, but he still ran a 4.840 at 6'6", 280. I mean, how he's running an insane amount of time.
You're going to be looking back if you're on. Yeah, you're going to be looking back. It's going to scare you.
Wherever Ty goes, I think he'll do great. I think he was a great leader for this team. Obviously, he stayed here for 5 years. Correct me if I'm wrong. Uh, it's a nice presence in the locker room, big threat on the line. And like you were saying, I think it's going to be hard to replace him, especially it's definitely going to be you can't replace him, especially when you run a 3-3-5. I think you'll see a lot more four-man fronts like you were saying, Bob. I think we have more of those players this year that kind of fit into those roles.
Yeah. What's that, Jim?
Um, you can't replace Hart. And if you look at great teams, I don't care whether it's basketball, baseball, football, there's always somebody that steps up and makes a play, whether it be Tommy Frazier, whether it be Michael Jordan, whether it be Ty Robinson, whether it be, my God, Almont Green, whatever. Somebody makes the play, and then everybody else goes up another step. Ty was that guy for Nebraska this year.
Hands down. I mean, Ty Robinson, I will go on this show and say Ty Robinson was the best defensive lineman Nebraska's produced, and they've produced professionals, Malik Collins, Khalil Davis, Randy Gregory. He was the best defensive lineman they've had since Ndamukong Suh. Now, I'm not
Okay, there
saying
you
he was Ndamukong Suh. Yeah, I know you were looking at me thinking I was going to say he was
go.
better
I'm like,
than. No,
wow.
I'm not. Ndamukong Suh is up here. Ty Robinson is here. I mean, there's a gap for sure. But the impact he made now, was he getting Randy Gregory sacks? No. Was he getting Ndamukong Suh tackle for losses? No. But the way he was able to plug the hole, that's the reason Nebraska was stopping people in the red zone. And they weren't
Right.
allowing a rushing touchdown till Indiana. That's completely because of Ty Robinson. And I will give Nash Hutmacher credit, but the progression you saw out of the 6 year senior, yeah, he played 6 years of college football, but still incredible. But I do want to close out really quick. We kind of covered this quite a bit, unless you guys have any last remarks on the Ty Robinson, just defensive line as a whole. Matt Rule spoke about kind of adapting to the times. I mean, it's a financial game. Nebraska has no financial debt. He's saying how Nebraska's good. Ohio State had $38 million in debt this past season, yet they won the national championship. I think Nebraska's going to be sitting pretty well. And then, but he was talking, you got to pick a side. You got to decide where you want to go because he pointed out he recruits these players from Florida and Georgia, as he said, and he's got to tell them. They're saying, "Hey, coach, when are we going to wear this uniform? You know, maybe wear the red pants with the red jersey or something, or the black shirt jersey." And he says, "Does he tell them well, it's going to piss off the fan base. We can't do that. Or does they do that? So he's telling the Nebraska people, you guys got to decide, do you want to adjust to the to win or do you want to keep the tradition as close as you can? I just want to know your guys' thoughts on that because I thought that was really intriguing.
I'll lead if you don't mind.
Go for it.
All right. It seems to me picked up a vibe, and that was Matt seemed to be a little bit, or yeah, a little bit testy, and I think that what you bring out is that indicates to me some type of frustration. I don't know where it comes from. You guys can speculate about that, but I think that it indicates some frustration on part of the head coach.
I would like to say the tradition's not changing, but the times are. I don't like the new environment, the aspects, the changes in the college football world. They're coming full storm, but you can't change that. I don't think Rule really likes it either from the motions I've heard from him and whatnot, but it's here and you can't do anything about it. It's a pay the play culture in the NFL or in the NCAA world now. So better buck up, better pay. I used to like the loyalty aspect as a young kid and be like, I want to go to this school because I want to be here. And I'm sure you still see that in a lot of players, of course, but money talks, like AC/DC said.
Well, here's the thing. What's kind of weird to think about is we are embracing, in a way, Nebraska is embracing. With Matt Rule as coach in the new NIL era, they're embracing a Bill Callahan run program in a way. I'm not saying you're embracing his work ethic or anything, but you're embracing an NFL model of a program. And that's just the way it's going to be nowadays. You aren't going to have a Tom Osborne type of program necessarily where it's built upon the brand, and then you still can and everything, and you can, but it's all about pay for play, like you guys said. Now we got a couple minutes left before I want to close out this show, but I do want to talk some injuries. Nebraska has a lot. EJ, you brought this up at the beginning of the show. Nebraska has a lot of injuries. They have Henry Lutovsky, Gunnar Gatula, Turner Corcoran, Teddy Braska, all on the offensive line. Then Carter Nelson's missing the spring. Now, I do want to point out this guy that covers Nebraska football for Rivals put on his podcast that he thinks Carter Nelson will miss the entire year. I don't think that's the case. Now, Carter Nelson is missing spring ball. He just had hip surgery over the offseason. He played through it and then got surgery after the season. I think he'll be back, but he is going to have to, climb up a hill. I mean, on the defensive side, um, gosh, I can't even think of on the defensive side. I know Demetrius Bell still recovering from the ACL tear he suffered in the last spring game. There are a lot of guys out for spring ball, and I that's not the biggest reason why they're not playing the spring game. But you look at it, they have a lot of guys that are paying a lot of money not to play. So I just kind of want to know what you guys' thoughts on the injuries. Carter Nelson, the offensive line.
Obviously, Carter is the biggest name when you see the list of players, because, well, we lost everyone at end, it feels like. Obviously, you keep, uh, I'm blanking on number 44's name. That's kind of embarrassing. The tight
What
end.
Lindenmeyer?
Yeah, Lindenmeyer. You keep Lindenmeyer, but you lose Borkature. Fedoni went to the draft. Nelson's obviously that guy's report says he might be out for the season. Words are words. We'll see what happens. But it's like chess. There's a lot of moving pieces, and early on, I guess it's okay, but hopefully we don't have to adapt too soon to uh, losing, I think, a star tight end.
And guys, you might as well face it. Teddy's not going to play another down. His body can't take it.
Jim, actually, I'm hearing now. I How will Teddy hold up is the biggest question. Guys blown out both knees
Right.
multiple times, but he sounds like he's on track now. I know a head coach can go up there and tell the media one thing and we can see another thing, but I think there's a lot of questions to be answered. And that was one thing I wanted to ask Rule yesterday is what is his plan for these tackles? What is his plan for Prohaska? What is his plan for Corcoran? Now we had about 30 people there to cover the Matt Rule press conference on Tuesday. I'm going to wait a little bit until the spring once they get some practice under their belt to ask Rule upon this. But Gatula's proven he could be a guy. You have Prohaska, you have Corcoran, all have starting experience. You bring in Pritchett. It's a good problem to have. You have these young guys in the roster. You talked about in the interior, you talked about Preston Tamua, Sam Sledge. The offensive line is going to be really fascinating along with the running backs on the offensive side of the ball. I think we all know clearly the quarterback. We know Kiner Carberg, Luke Lindemeyer, tight ends, Carter Nelson once he gets healthy. And then we know, but Dane Key out on the receivers, Naziah Hunter, Ja'Cory Barney, Hardly Gilmore potentially. These guys mixed in. But what we got to find out on the offensive line, who's the offensive line? I know you got Spindler coming in, but who is who?
I think part of Matt's involving your closing comments. I think part of Matt's frustration might have been the his thoughts on the amount of thought behind some of those questions too. So
Anyway, you got any last remarks? We're about to run out of time, EJ.
I do not, Bobby. I appreciate you for having me on the show once again.
Yeah, we're gonna have EJ back on throughout the off season. Keep having him as a guest. So, want to thank you all for listening. Drop a comment, shoot you guys our way. I thought we had a lot of good analysis for all Husker sports, but anyway, thank you all for listening. And Jim,
Go Big Red, and maybe we ought to try doing a broadcast from a fishing boat this spring.
we'll do it. I like that idea. We will do that.